Hey, so, okay, I'm Susan Crowther. Before I start, I just want to honour the people of this land, Mana Whenua, Tangata Whenua, and my responsibility as Te Tiriti, which was signed between the Maori and the Crown back in the 1840s. We were talking about this before you come online, Lara. So I live on this whenua, but I respect and honour the fact that I'm here in partnership with the people of this land. I want to thank Anna and the organisers of this conference. We were just saying that Anna and I first met at a wonderful conference called Reimagining Birth in Dublin 12 years ago. And on and off, we've had different things going on. So it's a delight to see Anna online with us today. So I'm delighted to be the chair for this Australasian special session that we've got. And I'm looking forward to what people are going to say. You've got a good 20 minutes each. That gives us time to have a good conversation as panelists. But before I open, I'm just going to start in the formal way that we do here in New Zealand. So this is a karakia. This is to open the space and bring a space in which we can walk into with sacred intention. Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te moana, tuia ki te here tangata, I ronga te pō, I ronga te eo, tūtoro whakamoe, kia tina, tina. We bind ourselves to the heavens. We bind ourselves to the land. We bind ourselves to the oceans. We bind ourselves person to person. We acknowledge the female element and we acknowledge the male element. We reinforce it, we make it firm. Firm, let it be. And so obviously I'm Susan, I'm here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I work as a professor of midwifery at AUT University. And prior to coming into academia, I was a community midwife, mainly at home birth for about 25 years. Came into academia probably in the I can't even remember now, the mid-2000s sometime. And a lot of my research is around spirituality and psychosocial and emotional care in and around childbirth. So I'm very delighted that this conference is happening, very excited to hear.
Talking to you from Sherbrooke, which is in the Francophone province of Canada. So it's 6 p.m. here. As I was explaining, I'm finishing my day at the hospital. I'm a spiritual care provider working mostly in palliative care, but all my research was around birth. And yeah, I came back a year ago from New Zealand where I spent a year with Susan. So it's nice for me to be here. And it was really meaningful for me to hear Karakia after all this time.
So Marie-Noëlle, back to you again.
So let's just jump in. Today I will be telling you the story of how this postdoctoral research came to be and led me to be supervised by Susan on the other side of the world in Auckland. And most importantly, how it made me cry as it revealed the core of spiritual presence at childbirth in midwifery, that is safeguarding love. So this story follows the classic structure, but we'll spend more time on the makings, the poiesis, the findings. So this story starts in Canada with me at the age of 19, giving birth to for the first time. It became really a passion. I read hundreds of birthing stories and I had 3 more kids after that. I also did feminist studies because you have to understand after that. But I did not become a midwife myself. My first call was religious studies with a theologian and an obstetrician here. I conducted research studies that you can see here on the slide to try to put some words on the spirituality of childbirth in the religiously adverse Francophone province of Canada. That's where my beautiful accent comes from. But I always took the perspective of the parent. And at the end of my PhD, I heard a second calling I am now a spiritual care provider in the healthcare system here, and I work mostly in palliative care. So yes, the beginning and the end of life seems to be following me. The combination of my research experience and my clinical work made me start questioning things around me that was later confirmed by literature review. That is, spirituality is important for parents around childbirth, but unlike at the end of life, there's very little recognition and implementation of spiritual care in maternity settings. There's like research gap on two main things, that is practical skills to integrate spirituality into the overall education, but also meaningful tools, like a meaningful understanding of what spiritual care means for maternity caregivers that are already quite overloaded and stressed. So the concept of present came to me in this article from Pembroke, and I thought that this idea of presence could be a practical and meaningful way to address spiritual care and maternity care. So my research question was, what is the meaning of presence as spiritual care for maternity caregivers in Aotearoa, New Zealand? But why this location exactly? Enter Susan. She had not only the research expertise in my domain, but also her writing is dreamy. So I ended up sending her an email.
Oh, this is the one I'm going to talk to, isn't it, Marie-Noëlle? So she's given me the methodology and method one to do. Thank you. So I was really delighted. Well, I'm always delighted when research fellows want to work with me in this area, because as you can imagine, there's not very many people working in this area globally. So, and the fact that she managed to get a significant funding so that she could come here with her family, husband and kids, and actually rent a property and come to the campus where I work, and we work quite closely together. So, and Marie-Noëlle also wanted to know more about hermeneutic phenomenology, which is really based on those lived experiences, which we often just walk through without thinking about them, but lived experiences are overflowing with meaning, and it's to the meaning that Marie-Noëlle really wanted to get to. So she came here, she got ethical approval, obviously, and that's actually quite challenging within a bicultural society. So that was no easy task, as Marie-Noëlle will remember. But she traversed that part and went on to do some interviews, which we'll talk more about. But the hermeneutic phenomenology, for those that are maybe not aware, it is really informed by a philosophy. The methodology itself is not the philosophy. It's a methodology underpinned by aspects of existential philosophy, especially the writings of Heidegger, Gadamer, and others, which you'll come to, and Hannah Arendt, I think you may have touched on as well. So it's an interpretive process, and it's obviously a naturalistic inquiry because it's looking at context. Again, very important and very well suited to the kaupapa Māori, or the Māori ways of doing research, that the context and the whakapapa, which is the ancestry, always have to be weaved into any kind of research here that involves people in their experiences. So Marie-Noëlle did in-depth interviews after recruiting people on one-to-one interviews. It was 10 midwives, both virtual, and I think there was a couple in person. She transcribed those interviews, and with those transcriptions, she crafted stories from them, which is a whole other topic, but that's just a way that we work in hermeneutic phenomenology. And from that process, went into a deeper interpretive analysis. So today, Marie-Noëlle is going to present what we call the poesis, or the makings, because findings is something that really belongs to a different paradigm. So back to you, Marie-Noëlle.
Thank you, Susan. This process, that's what the process looked like, of the interpretation, and it involves many conversation over Teams, me being back in Canada, and we discussed passionately about the meaning behind those interviews. And so that's what I'm gonna present now. As I listened to midwives and read over the stories, I grabbed some of the qualities of spiritual presence. A first quality was this idea of being called. Midwives feel a calling to love and care for others, being called to love. It's somehow a spiritual vocation. Here, Brenda says, it can't be anyone who's a midwife. You need to have a real sense of calling, of wanting to care for women in birth. I can't just look after them, come in and just do the tasks, sit there and do the recordings, make sure the baby's fine, the mom is fine, and progressing like she should be. Women need more than that. The reason I do this job is because of care. It's my gift. A second quality was this idea of filling my cup. In New Zealand, but also elsewhere, like there was this concern around burning out. And midwives said that yes, it's a vocation, but they also told me about the burnout in the profession. And so they told me about the importance of self-care to sustain midwifery practice, of spiritual self-care so you can care for others. That looked differently from one midwife to the others. But here Anna says, I gave a lot as a midwife, but it is healthy to be looking after myself spiritually, emotionally, and physically so that I can sustain. I prioritize spiritual health because that's what keeps me going. That this is what fills my tank. I can't give and not receive. I can't give what I don't have. So a third quality was this idea of facing birth with intention. Here Dorothy says, a student said to me, I hate this place, the staff, the culture. I answered, when you come into a place like the hospital, you can't change the whole hospital. It's just way too big. The only thing you can change is what you can directly impact around you. When you are really kind and helpful to your colleagues and you listen to them. And when you go into a birth room with a woman, you're generous with your time and you're kind to her, and that you've made space for her. What you bring into that space on your colleagues and then on the woman is the impact you've got. Then that's what starts to spread. So this idea of facing birth with intention is this idea of approaching work with some kind of awareness, self-awareness, and also a reliance on maybe like something greater to face the unknown of birth. A lot of midwives told me like all the rituals they have when they drive to work, they'll be praying, or before entering a room, they'll take a quiet time to calm down and being back to themselves. So because the next quality is this idea of attuning to the vibe, and it's the idea of like being there in the mood and in the environment of the birthing room. And they told me about this idea of spiritual intuition. Eva says, this is how I enter a birth room and provide spiritual care. First, being aware of what is happening in the physical. What do I feel in my body? Why am I feeling it? A gut instinct, intuition, a sixth sense. When you're in tune, when you tune yourself to your intuition, when you know the feeling in your physical body, that's a start. It does start with yourself. How are you to provide for that for somebody if you don't first acknowledge for yourself? Holding space was the next one. Like they told me, like I never heard that expression before. They told me about that. And it's this idea of like trying to regulate yourself and like and being there for the other. So Caddy says, that lady zoned out. She went into her own body, like an outer body experience. She displayed these actions of being so in tune in her body that as a midwife, I could just follow her cues. There was very little to do but keep a safe space around that woman to ensure that this was her birth in the way she wanted it. It was so beautiful, very uplifting and inspiring, and for want of a better word, spiritual. There was a spirit of holding that space as a midwife for women. The sixth quality was this idea of protecting something special. And that protecting of the sacredness of birth necessitates a type of spiritual courage. So here Irene tells me that story. A woman's water broke at about 19 weeks. She went into the hospital and ended up delivering the baby 2 weeks later. The baby was too early to survive. It lived on her chest for about 10 minutes. She asked me to pray for it. I felt so privileged. I was trying to say a prayer that didn't sound stupid. They were very touched. They were holding her, drenched in their tears. I was sitting thinking, they are questioning her with their tears. That was beautiful. And the last quality they talked really clearly was this idea of this spiritual experience being gift with that spiritual experience. So Gabriela says, the joys of hearing that baby crying and seeing the mother hold the baby and the baby feeding and the family and the children coming in. This is why I do this crazy job. The most powerful experience I had was the first time that a baby that I had caught, she had her first baby and I caught that baby. It was really overwhelming. I was there when you were born, I caught you, and now you're birthing your baby. It was pretty special, just really wow. So all of these qualities had something in common, and it talks about attention. Being a midwife, caring, is about being other focused. So your attention is devoted to the other person. But spiritual presence is this idea of the tension of being other oriented, yet inwardly anchored. It described this dual approach of midwives in providing spiritual care. They focus on the needs and experiences of the birthing mothers while staying grounded and anchored in their own spiritual being. This balance is essential for providing lasting care and compassionate care. And so this is true in being called to love. So your call is for the other, but it's grounded in a call that comes from you. It's also true in attuning to the vibe. So like you're there for the others, you pay attention to details, but at the same time, it's your intuition that tells you your truth. So this is true for all of these 7 qualities. But then I'm trying to see like, why is that so important for midwives to be holding this tension in? And that's when I realized that being at birth, and being present for people at birth is journeying through fear and joy. This is like the paradox in the birthing context. There is both fear and joy at birth. Childbirth, like fear, of course, because childbirth can be a source of fear for both the birthing moment, but also for the midwife. And because it's unpredictable, you don't know, there could be like complication, there's this responsibility and this entire unknown, like how can I cope with that? It's like emotionally intense and challenging, but yet despite the fear, there's this joy there. Childbirth is a profoundly joyful experience. It's the moment of like bringing new life to this world. And the joys of hearing the babies cry and seeing the mother holding the baby and the transformation of the woman into a mother, and seeing all those miracles, like the spiritual experience I was saying to it. So, and it's like a tension, like midwife have to not only try to navigate this fear and joy at the same time, but they are also trying to show the way to the mothers, so they don't get caught too much into their own fears. And so like they are modeling, they're like using their own body, midwives are using their own body as like a spiritual tool to bring some kind of trust, peace, and calm, so the others know how to. So embracing both emotion and showing some kind of spiritual courage is something important. So midwives navigate this childbirth in this paradoxical context by trying to hold them, by being, yes, focused on the others, but yet really anchored into themselves. But then I kept wondering, like, why is it that way? And I have this story, like Abby told me, I came in for the woman whose first language is not English. She was in the shower, unwell. I went next to her on my knees and slowly told her that I was there for her. All there, no other person to look after her. I turned down the lighting and closed the door so people will not interrupt. Touching her, there's a lot of touching in childbirth. The whole energy changed after that. She had the baby there in the shower. Her sister told me after the birth, "I will never forget the way you loved my sister. It's like a professional love." And that gave me the hint. Like, as I went deeper in the interpretation, it clicked at some point. I remember like Susan and I were talking, what is happening is this idea of like safeguarding love. Why are midwives journeying through fear and joy by being other focused, yes, inwardly focused, inwardly anchored? All these qualities, all those tensions pointed to me to this idea of safeguarding love. Safeguarding for Heidegger is this idea of proactive care and preservation. It's like trying to preserve the long-term well-being of an entity. Here, this entity being love. What is love? And I try to say, like, when is that the strongest? When can I see it the most clearly during the interviews? Is when midwives will tell me stories and add like tears in their eyes. And they could say it when this safeguarding love was present. So this is a story, like, it's not just a job, it's a life. It's extremely rewarding, satisfying, and meaningful. Sometimes I get more of an aha moment of wow with tears to my eyes. Those aha moments, they're extremely powerful, priceless, genuine. They make us human, fully in touch with one's soul. There aren't always the words to describe them. And she ends up saying, I want to capture it in a bottle. But the tears came also during the interview when safeguarding love was absent, when it was challenged. So like here, like this, Dorothy says, in healthcare, sometimes the care gets forgotten about because it's so busy, but if you don't care, then why are you here? You have to care. That's really sad. I'm getting all emotional. How are we loving on people? And another midwife says, the mom has this beautiful baby that she's breastfeeding for the first time and she's on her phone. I'm thinking, you haven't even known this baby for an hour and you already got your phone between you and the baby's face. That starts making me cry. That's really sad. It's about connecting. It's about commencing relationship. And we won't dive into the with some Heideggerian notions, but like this idea of machination of technology being maybe challenging this idea of protecting love. And like Kathy, I'll say that too. And like Katie says something like, there's a lot of mechanism out there to catch you, trying to catch you, to punish you, to highlight your inadequacies or highlight complaints, what you didn't happen, what didn't go right. It's all about consumer statistic complaints, health and disabilities. Yes, they are very valid to make improvement. Why? But why is it only research that capture the aha moments? It's a shame. So in conclusion, spiritual presence takes the form of different manifestation, but also this tension of being other focused yet inwardly anchored. And as the overall quality of birth is this idea of like a challenging, yes, meaningful journeying through fear of joy. And deeper analysis revealed to me this idea of safeguarding love, and the authentic tears of midwives as they were telling me those stories were the best indicator for me. And the only thing, like I will say for now that midwives said to me that they need an opportunity to talk about what spiritual care look like. Sorry for the typo there. And also midwives need support and time to share in the joy. So that's it for me.
Yay. Well done, Marie-Noëlle. That's from me. So save your questions, everyone. So we'll do that at the panel. But that was obviously I've heard the presentation before, but you executed it brilliantly. And I'm always in absolute awe when someone can present in a language different to their own primary language. So hats off to you.